Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. How is everyone here today? This is Global Ambassador Joe Garcia. Real excited to introduce you to our guest speaker. Before I get into that, for those of you who really are tied into the IRP, obviously if you're real serious about the NH2 Global Business, the International Recognition Program, tied to the Supreme Bonus, where you have $26,000 in cash, you got a car, you got many trips, and many other bonuses available to you here this year outside of the compensation plan. So we're ending our second quarter tomorrow night, 12 o'clock Central Standard Time, which is Dallas time, I believe, yeah, to the 25th, Sunday the 25th. So if you're nearing, what I would recommend is go down through your organization, in your back office, take a look at how close people are in your business to get to the first rank, the second rank, third rank, and et cetera, et cetera. So tomorrow night, Sunday, June the 25th, midnight Central Time, which would be 5 o'clock, actually 6 o'clock in Europe, 8 o'clock in Moscow, AM, midnight, noon hour on Monday in Hong Kong. So just give you the difference in time zones. Without further ado, let me introduce to you the guest speaker of today's training call. I remember when I first met this gentleman, I was doing a tour right across Europe, and I was in the little beautiful city of Ljubljana, Slovenia, one of the gems of Central Europe. And this gentleman originally from Germany, from Prague, drove in, which, you know, was impressive. He drove in from all the way from the Czech Republic. And this, Thomas, I believe you had a station wagon, correct?
Yes, it was a Volvo grade station wagon.
Yes, well, it was like a 1925 station wagon, correct?
Something like that, yes.
And I was surprised, and my first thought is, how did this car make it all this way here? And this gentleman walked out, and that was Tomas Knapek, and he was taking notes on front of the row. He was talking about how excited he was about pioneering NH2 Global all across Europe. And you got to put this in perspective, ladies and gentlemen. We were doing business in Slovenia. We were shipping from the US. We didn't have any kind of approvals in Europe. You know, it was really ground floor in Europe. And his plans were to go all over Germany, all over Austria, all over Western Europe to tackle this business. And you know, he encountered disappointments, he encountered challenges, he encountered groups that started and then quit. You know, you name me the experience, Thomas has gone through it. And you know, I have so much respect for what Thomas has accomplished here with NH2 Global. He's achieved the 6th rank. He's well on his way to the 7th and 8th rank, on his way to Global Ambassador. He has pioneered markets like Kazakhstan and Ukraine and Russia. He's been all over Europe, just pioneering the NH2 Global dream. And so there's very few people that I've worked with. And by the way, 23 years I got started in this industry. It was actually June 23rd, 1993 that I got started when I think, Thomas, I was around 10 years old then.
Something like that, yes.
Very few people that I've met in this business world around the globe that have had the tenacity, the persistence, the incredible mindset, you know, that can compete with someone like myself. I don't want to sound arrogant, but that is something I've worked on every day. And Thomas, we're really, Dan and I are really blessed to have you a part of our team, have you part of our leadership, and we're blessed for what you've been able to do right across Europe. And every time we've asked you to go into a market, you were there. You know, places like all the way up to Komsomolsk, Russia, and taking a train for 10 hours in the middle of the night. You know, you and I have both done that. So not too many people are willing to do what you were willing to do to get to where you are today and where you're going in the future. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's give a standing ovation wherever you are, in your car, beat the horn, in your office, stand up in your living room, and let's send great energy to this great man, Mr. Tomas Knapek from
Well,
Prague, Czech Republic.
Joe Garcia, thank you so much. You have actually said everything that I wanted to say, so this webinar is over. Okay, that was a joke. Well, thank you very much, Joe. I think your introduction was really great, and yeah, whatever you said is just spot on. So I want to, well, I'm from Prague. For those who don't know me really. Right, a tiny but proud little country in the heart of Europe. So it's a beautiful summer day outside today, and to those that are kind of came to listen, well, thanks for joining. So I want to talk today about really my walk, in this industry and how I struggled and almost gave up everything and ran back to a job. In and how I then just overcame all of my failings and eventually made it to the top. It's today it's just really my story and what I learned in that process, and I'm totally convinced that this can really help a lot of people who sometimes feel lost, because I absolutely felt the same. Well, as a side story, just to tell you, just a few days ago, I came back from a really great trip to the Arctic Circle, all the way up in Norway, and I was there with my good friend Pavel, and we drove up in a camper van just to see as much as possible on that trip. Now the catch was that we had only 1 week, right? So 1 week, and we drove more than 7,500 kilometers, which is about 4,500 miles. I mean, all that in 1 week. Now I could have easily, and I wanted to originally, stay for 3 weeks at least. But my friend had to go back to work as he has a regular job and just doesn't have that much time. Now, the interesting thing about that story and why I'm telling is that this guy, this friend of mine, he was my very first distributor that I signed up into NHT Global more than 10 years ago. He was super excited at the time. He saw himself being on stage, having fun, building the business, and then becoming financially free in life. Now, well, yeah. However, the sad story is that he has a, let's say, difficult wife, and she didn't agree at all with what he was doing, and was putting, eventually so much pressure on that poor guy to either get that high paycheck or quit. Well, after 2 years he quit, found a job, and is probably miserable ever since. And we talked about that challenging time on our trip up north, and he was looking back on this time as a distributor, seeing my success today and how he could have had a better life if he had only persisted. And he felt so bad now that he had given up so quickly. And that's the story of a lot of people that I know today. Of course, there is no guarantee that if someone persists and continues, that he will get a great 6-7 figure income, but the chances are really high, because this is not a gamble business. It's no lottery where you just need to be lucky to win. You know how many times I have heard someone say, "Oh, Thomas, you were just lucky to get in early." But of course, it hadn't do much with luck. Um, my friend Pavel got in at the same time as I did, and he now has a job, and I do enjoy my life. We had the same chances. I used it, he didn't. I had a vision, I guess he didn't. I was ready to persist and make another step when I didn't feel like it, and I guess he didn't, and I'm sure you know the saying, luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. All right, I just say that again. Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. And, I mean, what does that mean? In everything you do, you need a portion of luck, sure, to be at the right time in the right place. But without the proper preparation and willingness to do the hard work and to listen to your instincts and then to act on them, luck alone will not help you. Right. Well, I got a bit sidetracked, but I think there was a good introduction. Let me just go on with a few quotes that I think just make total sense now, and I just love those quotes, and each and every one of those quotes have been like a mirror in my life. I mean, those quotes are a complete representation of my own walk and of my own experience. Uh, Albert Einstein, he said, it's not that I'm so smart, it's just that I stay with problems longer, which is such a great quote. I mean, I could really rephrase that by saying, it's not that I am so good in this business, it's just that I persisted longer. And that hits the nail on the hammer, doesn't it? Staying with problems longer seemed to be his solution to most problems out there. And Einstein, well, already knew that at his time. We all need to do the same, staying longer with problems that we encounter. Harriet Beecher Stowe, and I really love this one. Now listen, when you get into a tight place and everything goes against you till it seems as if you couldn't hold on a minute longer, never give up then, for that's just the place and time that the tide will turn. And that is totally true. When you can't hold it any longer, that's when things start to change. It seems like, any person who reached a certain level of success that I talked to confirmed exactly the same thing. When you think you have reached the darkest corner, in your life, but keep going, then things tend to change. Now here's a favorite of Joe Garcia. Og Mandino, I will persist until I succeed. Always will I take another step. If that is of no avail, I will take another and yet another. In truth, one step at a time is not too difficult. I know that small steps repeated will complete any undertaking. Wow, I mean, that really is great. Of course, we all know that. Small steps taken in the right direction will get you there, even if you crawl. And the last one that I have in mind here, Robert Collier, success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. And, I guess that's the key here. It's the small efforts. Everyone can do small things. They just need to be done repeatedly every single day. So I don't want to make things too complicated. There are really only a few things that need to be learned in this industry, like how to present the company, how to present the opportunity, how to present the product, and how to teach this to others. I mean, that can be learned by repetition, and is really easy. It really just takes a few weeks. Heck, you can learn that in days. The rest of the journey, of course, takes persistence and determination to make it work. It's more about working on yourself. And I think you will get this is kind of a how do you call this red line that goes through my talk. It's about working on yourself and getting ready to embrace that challenge than anything else. This business really is won in your head first and foremost. But let me share my own story really, and how I got involved, so that you can kind of start to see where I'm coming from. I started my career in traditional business in the field of advertising a lot of years ago, and I kind of enjoyed that, what I did, and I earned quite good money, and I thought that was success because I had enough money. And at that time, I just saw success only in the context of that earning of that money, but not time. And of course, I had a big price to pay, and there was a lack of time. No time for anything, as I had to work long hours. But at that time, then, I hadn't realized that there were alternatives. Well, one day, a good friend of mine, Garth Wright, introduced me to this industry. And, believe it or not, but until that point, I've never heard of network marketing before or, MLM. I was just a complete greenhorn, thinking this would be really easy. Now, the first day we met, he drew some circles on a piece of paper and talked about, global distribution and world domination, and he drew some more lines, and he spoke about BV and downline, and after an hour I was lost. I mean, I couldn't really get it. See what he tried to explain to me. The only thing that I understood, and I'm really glad I did, the only thing I understood was time freedom. The ability, to have time and at the same time to be rich. And I thought that it was not possible before. I just I didn't get that. So I made my decision quickly and joined. And he flooded me, then immediately with books and CDs and tapes, and he said, read this and read that. And I absorbed, everything like a huge sponge, just learning from scratch. And the first few months were really hard for me, as I was not really, a natural at this. Believe it or not, but I tell you, I am a born introvert. I don't like public speaking. I don't like talking to strangers. And rooms filled with crowds frighten me. So this business was not really a great match for me, but I could at least see how this could work, and how over time I would not only learn all that's needed, but get over my fears and become really good at this. But at that moment, in my first year, when I was really starting out, I was not good at this. I mean, you can ask, well, a couple of people. Maybe Garth Wright will tell you how he was really trying to teach me, and how I was just not just doing very well. I just struggled. I couldn't get a stable team up and running, and I tried everything. Like Joe said, with my old Volvo station wagon, I traveled through a lot of countries. Going through Germany and Austria, Slovakia, Slovenia. When I went and visited one of our events where I met Joe, went to Hungary, Italy. And I made endless presentations, and it just didn't work as I imagined. Once I even flew for one day only to London to meet a prospect, and then back the same day just to save, on the hotel cost. I had that attitude of all in, but I still couldn't convince enough people that this is, a great business. And I was, frustrated. I was distressed. And one day my excellent sponsor, Garth, said two things to me. Number one, he said, in every distributor's life, one thing has to happen. You have to move the business from your head to your heart. And unless you do that, you will always stay average. If you can't, that's what he said, if you can't develop a passion for the business, if you can't create emotions and enthusiasm in your prospects, then your prospects won't believe you. They won't believe that you're real, because, well, people don't buy from you because they think it's logic. They buy because they believe that you are real and that you can help them. And that's why you have to create so much passion for it that people can see and feel it. And this only happens when you achieve moving the business from your logical thinking head to your emotional heart. Now, when he said it that way to me, at that moment, I wasn't really sure what he meant with that, but I did find out a little later. And I share that with you. The other thing he said was this, he said, okay, Thomas, there's going to be a great corporate event, in Dallas, Texas, and you need to go there. And I mean, gosh, if I had a mirror at that time, I looked at him, with kind of big eyes, and I said to him, I'm absolutely not going. This trip, would cost me what, $1,000, for the airplane, hotel, food. It's just too much, and I just don't want to spend it on a stupid trip. Well, Garth said to me, he said, it would probably cost you more than $1,000. But listen to this. But if you don't go, it will cost you eventually hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost income. And he had to repeat it twice before, I understood what he was talking about. By not going to such an important event, I would miss out on, on seeing the bigger picture and stay behind as a result of this. And I've read later on, there's really two big motivators, in life, in our life, and actually just two motivators at all. It's number one is fear of loss, and the second one is desire for gain. And we humans are more attracted or drawn to the fear of loss. We just don't want to lose on anything. This is kind of just hardwired into our brain. So hearing that I could lose hundreds of thousands of dollars because I would miss out on some really important event and training made me change my mind, and I went. So when I got there, when I arrived, I mean, I was nobody, and there was this. Well, it was just this huge event with thousands of like-minded people, and to just shorten it up, but it was just a complete eye-opener for me. All the trainings, I met all the big leaders there. Joe and Dan, of course, and so many others. I met corporate staff and sat in their midst between them, and was just learning from the best. The trainings, the crowd, the people, the ambiance, changed my vision and made me see this industry in a completely new light. I felt it, already at that point. The business was slowly but surely moving from my head, where I was just thinking about, numbers and money and what to do, what not to do. The business was moving slowly from my head to my heart, and I could really feel my emotions rise. Now, I just add that one quickly because it was so remarkable. Well, one of the most remarkable trainings that I heard was on the topic of rejection, right there at that training. And that was something that I just needed to hear at that moment. It was one of those issues that I kept struggling with most. We were asked by a leader to just change our perception on rejection and learn to embrace it, embrace rejection. So we had to try to hear the word, no, as often as possible. And the more often we would hear the word no, the quicker we would reach success. We just had to collect a lot of those no words, like, no, I'm not interested. No, I don't want to try this product. No, I don't want to become a distributor. Because when we hear a lot of those no words, one thing changes. We would also hear once in a while a big yes. All right, so we were told, if you want to make a living, you must collect at least 50 no's. In other words, you have to hear the word no for at least 50 times. If you want to have a good lifestyle, you have to collect 100 no's. If you want to retire and stop working, you must collect at least 500 no's, because then you've also heard a lot of yeses. and this training and many others just completely opened up my eyes. I flew back home, on eagle's wings. I was really on top of the world. Saying to myself, "Here I am, get out of my way." Well, the business has clearly moved at that point from my head to my heart. Now, I came back home a changed person, filled with a fresh vision of how I would conquer the world. Well, um, my feeling of being on top of the world lasted for about 10 days, maybe less. Then I woke up, and found myself being at the bottom again, just feeling not motivated, doing phone calls, doing more phone calls, hating it, going to presentations and hearing one no after another. So how did I get back up? How how does anyone overcome those feelings? Well, I remembered, all the other trainings and the CDs and the books that I read, and of course, it's the main topic of my talk. It's all about personal development and changing yourself. And that's what I mentioned before. The victory is always made in your head. I worked on myself, and I began to teach others. And that was when things changed. And I realized that suddenly I was not alone. People started to do the same. And guess what? If a lot of people do the same thing, uh, things start to move. And then one day you wake up and you are in BV heaven. There are suddenly so many distributors, you can't keep track of them and where they are coming from. And that's the point where you wake up and realize, gosh, you are making money in your sleep. Um, I read a lot about motivation and being productive, as you can imagine, and how to get to the top all the time. And while it's mostly true what is being, written, there's one thing that most writers, don't write about that much, and it's one of those things that will make all the difference for you in this business. Now, it might sound a bit cheesy, and you've surely heard it before, but this is it. Don't quit. If you quit, it's game over. You will just not build the future that you desire. And like my friend Pavel that I talked about at the beginning, you will go back to a job and one day just look back at this missed opportunity, and will only imagine where you could have been today. Now, don't allow this to happen. Don't. Ask yourself this question, will this decision to quit matter a year from now? Just ask yourself this question. The ability to push through is what will set you apart from 99% of the people out there. And that is so important. Just come to mind three more quotes or sentences or wisdoms, I don't know, that just tie in there. I just want to say that it does not matter how slowly you go as long as you do not stop. It's the main theme what I keep talking about. It always seems impossible until it's done. In one more, I love that one. If you can't fly, then run. If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. But whatever you do, you have to keep moving forward. Now, I've worked for a long time with a lot of people, and I'm so proud to work right now with a good friend of mine in this business, and his name is Dalibor. He's a friend of mine, and he has become a synonym for persistence, endurance, patience, hard work. I have to bow before him, for his ability to hang in no matter what. Now, I am his sponsor, and I may have, well, maybe taught him a few tricks, But bottom line, I'm sure he has taught me more about the business than I ever could. For years he was struggling. I saw people fall away on my left, on my right, and he kept going. He kept going like a tank. And then, not surprisingly, things started to change. And, the business has this special way that in most cases you have to go through the blizzard and the rain first until you come out into the sunshine. For a long time, I myself, was kind of stuck in that tunnel where I just couldn't see the light on the other side. And if you ask, any other great leaders, and I mean, you can ask any of them from, Joe and Dan, Garth, Elena in Russia, and Sonia, Philip in Ireland, Helen in Sweden. I mean, there's so many of them. Everyone can tell you, a similar story. Unfortunately, most people just walk into this business a little bit too light-hearted, with the assumption and hope that they can get rich quickly. And of course, it's true that you can get very rich indeed, but it takes time. And most people have to go through that tunnel before they see the light. And that is what it is, that is how the business works. The sooner you accept that fact, the sooner you can adjust to this rule and make the best out of it. The business will eventually, at one point, just develop a life of its own. Once you've reached some critical mass, it will just roll, and then you couldn't stop it even if you wanted to. And this is where we're all heading. This then becomes the fulfillment of our dreams. But until that happens, and it will eventually, you've got to stick to its own rules and not quit. And only then, you can look into your back office one day, go on vacation, and come back with just more money than when you started out. Right. Well, I want to add one more thing. I've been asked a lot of questions in the past, and I just want to finish with a set of, let's call them most frequently asked questions concerning my life and my walk, and then I just answer those questions. So bear with me for another few minutes, please. One of the questions really that ask people most, and I've said some of it, but I guess I just want to repeat things here. The question is, how did my first 12 months look like? Well, when I started out and just really didn't know what to do, I just brought as many people as possible to my sponsor. At the beginning, I just didn't do anything alone. I just looked and learned. And he made me do lots of presentations. And sometimes I hated it, Eventually, I was doing really lots of presentations, and I guess that made me better and better at it. I started looking all over the country for new people, and with every new distributor that I signed up, a list of hundreds, well, a list of 100, new prospects open up in front of my eyes, because every new distributor has his own list of people, and through those new people, I could contact new prospects. So if done correctly, you should really never run out of contacts, because with just one new person, new prospects emerge. So I was sharing with anyone who would listen, and it doesn't matter, it didn't matter at that time if they didn't act immediately. Recruiting is a process that just takes time. Sometimes someone just needs to hear it once, but in most cases, he needs to hear it several times and from several sources. And sometimes they come back months after the first contact, because at that time he was just not ready. So that's normal. It's important to keep several people in the loop, kind of jungle with them, and well, eventually one of them will join. Question number 2 out of, I don't know, 4 or 5. Was I depressed doing the business when things didn't go well? Um, yes, a lot of times, and probably regularly for the first 3 years. I thought of quitting the business at least 3 times. I mean, seriously, not just like I quit. No, I mean, I was serious, but I always pulled out of that in the last second because I remembered the promise I gave to myself. I did not want to be a failure. I wanted to prove to myself, probably most and foremost, that I can do it. So I gave it another push and moved forward, doing the basic stuff again and again, showing the products, showing the opportunity to anyone who would listen. You think you can't do it? Well, think again. If you commit yourself to this and you have your dream in front of your eyes, you will learn the skills needed and find the strength to continue. And I also had a strong reason to become successful. I just didn't want to go back to my old life and work and work and work and work and work, even if it was maybe well paid. Time was more important to me than anything else. And I just simply made up my mind that I will not stop. And that determination was a key factor in my, process. I just promised to myself I will not give up, because once I do, well, as I said, it's game over. And anytime I felt, depressed because of my group was not growing fast enough, or in some cases, not at all, or they collapsed in front of my eyes, or sometimes I drove to a presentation and no one came. In all those moments, my first impulse was to stop, to quit, to run away, to go home and look for something else in my life. But then I just remembered my dream and goal, and I realized that if I did not succeed here, why would I succeed somewhere else? All right, well, how does my lifestyle look today? I mean, I get that asked quite a lot, and well, the simple answer is, well, I don't have to do, anything for the business, and I still get paid for the last, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. Enough money to do the things that I like without thinking about money. And don't get me wrong here. I don't want to brag about it, but this is what we all signed up for. This is the reason you're on this call right now. And you need to know that this really is possible. 7 years ago, I opened a coffee shop in the center of Prague. I invested in some property. I wrote a book, a novel, because I had time. And well, hopefully I'm going to publish finally this year. I play in TV shows on national television once in a while, just for fun, because I can. I had my wife start a business. I keep traveling. We still have kids and a normal, family life, so we need, some routine. But this is really, it's the greatest benefit I got out of this is freedom, peace of mind, not needing to worry about how to pay for my life in the future. And that is something so much more valuable than anything that I can buy for money. Right, well, last question, please. What can I recommend to anyone today? Just 3 points, really. Invest in yourself first. In other words, spend time working on your self-development. That's the single biggest thing you can do for you. I've said that at the beginning. This business is won in the head first and foremost. Be clear about why you're doing this. It's not just well, it's not enough to just wish to make more money. I mean, that's okay. We all want that. But you need to have a really huge reason or dream that is greater than anything else. Because in order to succeed, you must make your dream stronger than your fears. Otherwise, the fear will just take control of you. Without a clear understanding of that dream, it's hard to keep going. And sadly, too many people stop believing in their dream and just give up too soon. Sometimes just before reaching the peak. Persistence just takes effort and time, but it's worth it. I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but let me just finish, with this one quote that I've heard someone say before. I do today what I have to do so that tomorrow I can do what I want to do. Right, guys? One last story, promise, but I have to tell that because it really made me laugh. Just a few days ago, I called up my buddy Joe Garcia to chat with him, and he was busy, and he sent me a text message that he's in a meeting. Now, interestingly, I realized that he has done that several times, in the past few weeks to me, always saying that he was in a meeting when I called him. So when I finally did talk to him, I complained, to him that he's not supposed to work so much because we are in this business, in network marketing, and we're supposed, we're not supposed to work all the time and be in meetings. So he laughed and he said that he's just being a model for other distributors. And by the way, of course, this is not really work at all. And he told me his own story where his neighbor leaves the house every day at 7 in the morning to commute to his job and rarely comes home before 8. And that is the real work. But then he added that the other day, his neighbor was curious and asked Joe what he was doing for a living because he never sees, Joe commute or work. And he asked if he is mafia. Mafia. I had to laugh really hard at this point as I pictured Joe Garcia being the main mafia boss in Canada. Well, I guess the income is at one point probably the same, but our industry is surely more fun. It's more legal. It doesn't hurt anyone, and life expectancy is surely much longer than mafia. All right, my friends, this is really it for tonight. I hope this was worthwhile your time and everyone found some golden nuggets that they needed to hear. So wish you good night, a great week, and tremendous results. Thank you very much.